Good morning, peeps. Happy day to you. I hope you're back from church. Those of you that go to church, amen. I'm not taking the Mickey Mouse, okay? Right, listen. Last night I posted 3 little short clips about a guy, and he's talking about birds and the way they travel, their eyesight and whatever. This is about not just hearing, it's about listening to what is being said. Now I've got that clip. It's going to be a few minutes, right? But it is important not to just hear it as you're doing something else and, oh yeah, that's interesting. Listen. This is very important. This is as an important clip as I have ever done. Now listen to what is being said, right?
The homing pigeon very often uses a whole range of different methods to find its way, from remembering landmarks, the following direction of the sun, but also many birds are found to have these tiny magnetite crystals at the ends of their beaks. And what happens is when the bird is aligned in a particular direction relative to the Earth's magnetic field, then that will cause these magnetic crystals to adjust and move, and as they do, they will create tiny currents and pulses that can be magnified and send signals via the neurons to the brain, signaling to the bird to move in a particular direction. This was discovered, well, the notion that birds could actually detect the Earth's magnetic field goes back to the mid-19th century. More recently, work carried out in the late 60s and early 70s suggested that there was another way that certain animals, certain birds, could detect the presence of the field. So this is a husband and wife team, the Germans, the Wilczkos, who published controversial work in Science in the early 70s.
Now, when I hear something, I don't accept much of what I hear, and for good reason. Now, there's a picture of them. It came up, right? There's a picture of these 2 people, Germany, 1972. They're called the Wolfgang Wilczko and Roswinther, right? 1972. So what? Straight away, right? Groundbreaking discoveries on birds. So this is what I always do. 1975, right? This is ready reference and index, right? So I go to W and I look for Wilczko. This is groundbreaking discoveries of birds, okay? Now, so I go through it, right? So I get to Wilson, and then will come Wilt and an S, Wilts. So to cut a long story short, it wasn't in here. 1975, proper encyclopedia. This is the add-on. This is the in-depth encyclopedia. This is the one where if you go into Fitzo and Foucault and all those things, it will give you an in-depth, but still without the actual numbers that we use. And he was able to work out the speed of light because of the angle. What was the angle? Shh, show me! Never to be found. So I go to the in-depth. This is very important, right? Cut a long story short, no. There is no mention of these groundbreaking discoveries of birds. I'll then go to 1984. And guess what? Wilson, and it goes to Wilton, Wimbledon, Wimple. And there are loads of names of people, and these are encyclopedias. This is groundbreaking stuff. Late 1960s, 1970s. Horseradish. So then I go to a 1992. All right? And what do I find in the 1992? Nothing. There's no mention of this couple. It looks like the same photographer that would take the Einstein photos. You know, where he's always, what? Now, this is about listening, not just hearing. Now, let's carry on with this. So, first of all, they've said there's evidence. Groundbreaking, late 60s, 1970s. Why is it in no encyclopedias? I haven't even looked to see if it's on Google, because there's a good chance that it already is now. But knowing that Google and NASA work together, it is a problem. The books do not lie. They are not in 4 different encyclopedias. Now let's listen again. We're going to carry on.
They carried out an experiment on European robins and realized that the robin certainly could sense the direction of the Earth's magnetic field, but it wasn't doing it in a traditional way that we would use a compass. So these birds weren't sensing which direction was north and which direction was south. Whatever compass they were using didn't depend on the polarity of the field. And they carried out increasingly sophisticated experiments where they would capture these birds and then put sort of artificial magnets outside these chambers where the birds were caught, and reverse north and south of the magnets and see what happens. And the birds didn't seem to be affected by...
Now listen. That right there, I listen to it. And I say to myself, what the fuck are we talking about here? Birds? I would like somebody to show me how a European robin can catch one for me, please, somebody, without blowing a tranquilizer dart up its arse. They make it sound like they were mosquitoes, cast net, right? These are birds. And then they got these birds, and what did he say? They put them into chambers. So they have all of these European robins, right? But these people that were doing this, they're not in any of the books. And this, it's important that you listen to what is being said, right? It's very important. Let's just go back. So chambers, they put them in chambers. Go back about 30 seconds or a minute.
Weren't sensing which direction was north and which direction was south. Whatever compass they were using didn't depend on the polarity of the field. And they carried out increasingly sophisticated experiments where they would capture these birds and then put sort of artificial magnets outside these chambers where the birds were caught and reverse north and south.
Artificial chambers where the birds were caught. What's an artificial chamber? And then they put magnets to try and alter the magnetic current. So what? These magnets are in the chambers and they release the birds again and see if they go left or if... Guys, this right here is a lie. I am calling it a lie. For those of you that say, I don't... You're not listening to what is being said. Nobody catches robins like you catch a bus, right? Now, let's just carry on with this.
The magnets and see what happens. And the birds didn't seem to be affected by which direction was north, which direction was south. They deduced that the birds weren't following a north-south direction within the field, but rather pole to equator, equator to pole. And they realized that it wasn't the direction of the Earth's magnetic field, but the angle of inclination of the field. Let me explain what I mean.
Go on then.
If you think about, so this is the field lines. These aren't physical lines. You remember the experiments at school with iron filings. The iron filings will create the landscape of the magnetic field, showing the direction of the field lines. For the Earth, of course, the field lines come out of the South Pole, or equivalent to our geographic South Pole, out and around and go in to the North Pole. And so close to the poles, the magnetic field lines are vertical, or almost vertical. But past the equator, they are parallel to the ground. And so depending on how far north or south you are, the angle of inclination of the field changes. And research suggested that the European robin was somehow able to figure out a direction to travel based on the angle of inclination. But it wasn't clear what that mechanism was. So here's a contour map of lines of equal inclination angle. And you can see that, for instance, if I put in the path taken by the European robins, they're moving roughly from
Europe,
central Scandinavia with an inclination angle of about 76 degrees, and there's a change, reduction angle of about 20 degrees down to the Mediterranean. The strength of the magnetic field also changes. The intensity, it'll drop from something like just over half a Gauss to just under half a Gauss.
Just under half a Gauss.
But there's no evidence yet that the birds are able to somehow calculate, you know, this is where I am because the intensity of the field is this, and the angle of the inclination is this. But somehow they utilize this information to tell them which direction to go. So far so good. This is no longer really controversial. Many more sophisticated experiments have been carried out since the early 70s to convince scientists that...
Now, do you hear what he just said? Many more convincing tests and this and that and the other have been carried out by scientists. Now hang on. Why is none of this in any encyclopedias? This is what I mean about evidence. People just presume. So now this guy has not only told obvious porcupines about these two Germans, Wolfgang and what's her name, no mention of it, but the things. I don't need to look in encyclopedia because I know those names are not there because of the stuff he's talking about. These are birds. Do you know why birds go south? When it's cold? Instinct. They've been doing it all of their lives, their parents, and then the next year the others do it, and they just work it out. They don't have complicated computers in their beaks.
That birds are able to do this. What was puzzling, of course, was the mechanism.
Here we go.
It was still thought that this maybe had something to do with these metal magnetic crystals for instance, in the bird's beaks. Because the birds, even the European robin, would utilize various different techniques, even if it followed this rather strange, mysterious method of knowing the angle of inclination of the magnetic field to find its way. It certainly used other more traditional ways to find its way back.
Compass.
For instance, possibly using these magnetic crystals. But how does it find its direction in the first place? The mechanism that was proposed was made by a group at University of California, Irvine, about a decade ago. And it's based on a process that takes place down at the molecular level, something called the radical pair mechanism.
Now, you know what this means. This was way past everybody anyway, but now we are at the molecular level. Now, all I hear is horseradish. Those of you that are listening to this and you think everything that has just been said about these birds is true, you are in a lot of trouble, right?
So, what I'm going to dive in here into some quantum mechanics that is rather complicated. I'll zoom back out again and tell you a bit more about the weirdness of quantum mechanics in a few minutes. So here's the title of their paper, a model for photoreceptor-based magnetoreception in birds. The idea was that whatever the mechanism was going on, it seems that the birds were able to somehow sense through their eyes, the direction they should travel through the Earth's magnetic field. And the clue was a particular protein in the photoreceptor cells at the back, on the back wall of the bird's retina, a protein called cryptochrome. Cryptochrome is
Not
known to
kryptonite.
be it's stimulated by light, particular wavelengths of light, typically blue light, that can excite atoms within the protein.
You hear me say the world is full of lies and deceit and people claiming knowledge that can't be known. This right here, do not insult my intelligence. There is no way. They're now turning quantum into the birds at a molecular level. Bullshit. Right? I can't listen to this stuff. I cannot listen to this stuff.
And so, which is why cryptochrome had to be in the bird's eye for it to work, because it had to actually have light coming into the eye to get this mechanism working. It's still controversial whether the process takes place in just the bird's right eye or both eyes. It would seem strange that it's only, and you'd think evolution would be a bit more, sort of free and easy about which particular eye would be used. Surely birds that could utilize the mechanism in both eyes would have some evolutionary advantage. Nevertheless, here's the quantum mechanics that takes place. Two electrons in an atom can exist in what's called a quantum state. So they have the same energy, but they have to spin in opposite directions. So in a very broad, rather non-accurate quantum mechanical way, you can say one spins clockwise and one spins anti-clockwise. And they form a pair. And if one is spinning clockwise, the other one has to spin anti-clockwise, otherwise it has to go and live somewhere else.
It's going in the eye.
This is something called the Pauli exclusion principle, which says that there are rules about how many electrons can be close together in the same state and what direction they spin in. In cryptochrome, it's thought that light, photons, particles of light, will come in and hit and knock one of those electrons in the pair. And that electron will be knocked off into an adjacent molecule, forming what's called a radical pair. Molecules that are both electrically charged. One is now positively charged because it's lost an electron, one is negatively charged because it's gained an electron. That's fine.
This is birds.
What's magical, quantum mechanically, is that although these electrons are far apart, living on different molecules, they still know about each other's existence. If one is spinning one way, the other one doesn't have a choice.
Now, guys, when I talk about evidence, and I say, there's no evidence this and that, and you guys say things like, but no, they worked it out in the 1600s and the 1700s. And I'm saying, no, they didn't. Nobody works out the speed of light spinning a mirror. But people read it and they accept it, right? Now, this stuff right here, I do not know how people would believe this crap, right? First of all, there's no names. These two Germans who did all of this groundbreaking European robin discoveries, catching robins in the wild and putting them into chambers and then using magnets to see if they freaking fly off course. It does not happen. The same as mirrors working out the speed of light by spinning them pre-electricity doesn't happen. This is about listening to what is being said, not just hearing it and believing it, because this right here is bullshit, right? I call it 100%. The amount of stuff that's being claimed here cannot be known at the molecular level. Now, the reason why this is very important is because it's the same guy who explained the double slit theory, right? Guys, the lies are everywhere, and you guys have gotten to the stage where you do not know how to differentiate between what's real and what isn't, right? I hear this stuff and I am like, is this for real or is it a comedy, a parody? Guys, you need to listen to what is being said and actually break down what they're saying and put it into actions in your head. This stuff did not happen. And then it goes on to quantum. And there's the little link. And then it will move on. Guys, I am telling you that you are under siege. The lies are obvious, right? I hear this stuff. It infuriates me. And just while we're here, before I knock on, it's the beginning of the Easter holidays today, so I need a day or two because this place becomes swarmed with teenagers and they wreck the place. So I like to have it in nice order before they get here. "8 minutes and 20 seconds. If we were on a bus and somebody said to me, hey, 8 minutes and 20, I'd throw them right off the bus, right? I would. Now listen to this. Done this before, right? Now, the shadow that this stick is casting onto the grass, the sun is 100% bang, smack, bang, whichever way you want to call it, behind the stick. The sun, just like an eclipse, will be perfectly in line with the sun. If there is a delay of 8 minutes and 20 seconds, guys, that sun cannot be where it is. You cannot see the photons down here at the very same time as seeing the sun that launched those photons 8 minutes and 20 seconds earlier. In fact, you know what? You can see the photons landing on the grass. And you can see the light source that launched them 8 minutes and 20 seconds earlier at the same time. Do you know what that is? It's absolute light. There is no delay in the light getting here from the sun, right? It's ridiculous, guys. It does not take 8 minutes and 20 seconds for anything to come from that star. Right, I'm going to have to take a day or two now. I'll still come back and do something. I haven't checked messages for a day and a half. So I will do some messages. I need a day and a bit to do some admin because I've spread myself too thin. Guys, be critical. Don't just listen to things and accept them. Oh, yeah, there's previous evidence. Oh, there is no evidence. This bird stuff. They're claiming knowledge that cannot be known. You need to pull the reins back in. Be more critical in what you believe, guys. The bullshit is obvious once you start to see it, but you have to remain critical because they are taking humanity on a ride. It's a slam dunk, right? Now, I'm not going to say his name, but it's the same guy that explained the double slit theory, the experiment. That's another load of, honestly, the whole shebang. They are misleading you guys. I'm telling you. All right. 23:35. Later, peeps.